We are live. Hello, 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 everybody, and happy Wednesday. Winsday. Hey, I'm Joy, and I'm here with my good.
Ame-Lia Tamburrini. So good to be here with you, Joy.
Yes, yes, you guys. We are back for another week of just talk, soul to soul conversations. We show up on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Central, 11 a.m. Pacific. So, Ame-Lia, I think for the benefit of people who are maybe just, going to be watching the replay of this and seeing us for the first time, let's just let them know that the reason why we're doing this is because we were talking among ourselves and we realized that we both shared very strong feelings about some of the things that are going on in society lately. Namely, that people don't seem to be able to really talk to each other about significant issues, about things that actually matter without there being friction or without that feeling of, ooh, let's dance around this topic or, ooh, let's not talk about that. Like everybody's sort of walking on eggshells. And when there are differences of opinion, people seem to have lost their minds these days. And they don't know how to actually have a conversation without the heightened emotion and the anger and like why is there so much hatred and why is there so much us versus them and all of that. And we were finding with ourselves that we talk about everything and we don't necessarily agree about everything. We do agree on a lot of things, but on those things where we don't agree, there's curiosity and
Mm.
there's interest like, okay, why are you thinking that way? Or what can I learn from your perspective? And so um, we felt like we were on to something, right? In our just individual conversations. And it's like, you know what? Let's bring conversations about just things that are on our hearts, like what's on your mind, what's on your heart, what's underneath the surface. Let's talk about it. So we just wanted to create a platform where we can do that and encourage people to engage with us in just soul to soul conversations, right?
I love how you describe that. Yeah, absolutely. I think when you were sharing that, especially around some of the conversations we have where we do have differences of opinion, I was thinking, yeah, what is it about you and I think me as well that makes that okay, that makes it kind of a safe, warm space to step into versus a really prickly one? And I do think that curiosity piece is huge, but
Mm,
what allows us to be in that place is to not have our nervous system so activated, to be present enough in the dialogue and connected enough to one another to understand that even when we are having those reactions and we might want to get defensive and whatnot, that that's not really real. And that's really kind of just like old programming. But we've done a lot of work in that space and it continues, right? It's not like we're some sort of super evolved human that doesn't have more growing and
mhm,
expanding to do. But I
mhm.
do love that we can do that together. And I do hope that by other people joining in on our conversations, that they'll also be able to create those spaces in their own lives.
I remember you saying, maybe it was a couple weeks ago, you said something about, or maybe it was when I was interviewing you on my show. I don't remember. In one of our recent conversations, somewhere, you said something about living in the questions, right? Like questioning and sort of living in the question, or at least that's how I heard it. And I think that's part of it too, because I know for me, I am almost always in some sort of state of there's a question, in my head, whether it's a question about myself. So like even when we are talking and there's something that comes up and you share an opinion, or something, a thought, and it doesn't resonate with me, if I find myself reacting, something in my brain immediately turns that into an introspective question like, Joy, what's actually happening with you right now? What are you like, what are you actually doing right now? What is happening? And that in and of itself causes me to shift, right? My energy shifts automatically into a different state, rather than acting out on whatever that feeling is in the moment. And I'm highly curious. Like, why are you thinking what you're thinking? Like, what do you know that I don't know? Or what have your experiences been that maybe I haven't experienced?
Yeah.
So
I love that. What I think that requires, for me anyways, it's required getting to know myself and what all those reactions are and maybe where they're coming from and all of that stuff. So in that vein, Joy, can I ask one of our favorite questions?
well,
Who are you in this moment today? Knowing that we are always evolving, but who are you, Joy Ross?
who I am right now in this moment, and let me lift this
Oh,
cup
you
up.
are hip.
It says HIP, right? So that's actually an acronym. I got this cup at from somebody that I serve with at church, right? And it's an acronym for happily imperfect person. That is who I am. I am a happily imperfect person. I am very much imperfect, and I am happy. I'm not in a self condemning state. So I am that, and I'm filled with curiosity today about curiosity and internal conversation about love. I am fascinated today with the topic of love. Mm-hmm.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. I mean, I could say more, and I will say more on that and why that is, and sort of some of the thoughts that are brewing on the inside with respect to love. But before I do that, I'm going to flip that right back to you and ask you, who are you in this moment?
I'm in the process of writing a speech right now, and I love the creative journey that speech writing requires. And what I feel like right now is a vessel. Like I am a vessel for universal wisdom, for God's wisdom. And this process of writing is like this continuous journey of just allowing and trusting that I will receive those messages and that they will come. And it always happens, but it's only when I get like anxious that it won't come that nothing flows. And I find myself struggling. So right now I do really feel like I am a vessel. And I too am curious about love. I love the topic of love. In fact, I use the word love a lot. And so I'm curious, what is it about love that's bubbling up in you right now?
Yeah, well, first of all, let me say, when you said I'm a vessel, I was like, all right, I just want to burst through this screen and like hug you right now because we are so aligned, because that pretty much is foundational. That's what's underneath me brewing with this thought of love, really, because I very much am a vessel of and for love. I really believe that about myself. It's part of my identity. But what got me thinking about love was a couple things in particular. I think is why I woke up just with all of these thoughts. And one thing was that I saw that it's the 20th anniversary. I saw a couple days ago, I think, that it's the 20th anniversary of the movie Love Actually, which is one of my all-time favorite, especially holiday season movies. I love that movie. And so I was watching this special that Diane Sawyer did where she was interviewing a lot of the actors from the movie. And so that got me thinking about how love really is actually all around. It
Mm.
really is all the time. And it's sometimes a matter of what are we looking for, because I really believe we find what we're looking for. So when we're not looking for it, it can seem like it's not there. It can appear as if where is the love, but it is
Mm.
actually all around all the time.
Yeah.
And I just started thinking about that. And I was thinking also about conversations that I've had with people lately. And it seems like for some reason, I've encountered so many people who have mentioned to me how they have been hurt by the church. And I'm going to do this for that, hurt by the church, right? And they've shared stories with me about specifically what that has looked like. And very commonly, what it is that they've encountered going into a church or perhaps churches where people in those churches have made them feel something other than loved, right? I could sum it up that way, right? So whether it's they felt judged or they felt less than, or they felt like they weren't dressed good enough, or that people were making fun of them, or they felt other, all of that can be summed up to me in, okay, well, you felt something other than love, right? So that got me thinking about, why is this so important to me? Why am I so moved? Like when I hear those stories, it literally like cracks my heart a little bit. And so I've just been thinking about that, and what I've come up with today is part of the reason why it cracks my heart so is I've got compassion for people, first of all, right? And so it hurts me when people are hurt. And that's because I love people, and love feels, love feels when other people are hurting, love feels hurt. Almost like love is a entity, right? I believe it is. So yeah, and I'm like, ooh, I've got this love in my heart for people that I don't even really know that well. And I have love in my heart for people that I do know, and it breaks my heart. So let me just say, if you're like watching this and you consider yourself to be a believer in God or Jesus, or you attend a church, may I invite you very kindly to please consider your actions and your words and the impact that they have on other people. And especially if you attend a church, please consider how you treat people, and know that how you treat people, even though you are not God and you are not Jesus, and that is a fact, but how you treat people, they may interpret that and draw a conclusion about who God is and who Jesus is based on what you did or you said. So if we could all please, and this is a kind invitation, please let's just either keep our mouths shut or just be kind to people. It hurts me to know that people walk into churches and they don't feel love.
Mm.
So all of that is what's brewing inside of me today. And I don't know, maybe it's because, yeah, it is the 20th anniversary of Love Actually, which is one of my favorite movies. It's also coming up on December, and Christmas is all about Jesus. So I think I started thinking about that too. How, wow, how unfortunate that so many people are so turned off by just hearing the word Jesus, right? Which is what Christmas is really all about. And how unfortunate that so many people are turned off because of what individuals have done and what individuals have said. And it just ought not to be that way.
Mm. Mm.
I know that was a lot. Woo! All that came up and out.
It was beautiful, though. I just really feel your love of people, and I know that you have a deep love of God and Jesus as well, and I feel that too in that, and that I think that is also what is heartbreaking for you is the perception that people have out there because of a lot of the ways in which the messages of the scripture have been twisted into sort of man's fear-based ways of being in the world. And it's undeniable that the church has
Mm.
caused a lot of harm and a lot of trauma in the lives of people. And I think collectively, we're all on a journey of healing from that. But it does require new surroundings, new ways of speaking about um, scripture that I don't think are that common. Like the circle that I'm involved in with you, Joy, I've never ever been in discussions around God and Jesus the way that you speak of that in our relationship um, with um, with God and Jesus in those moments. Like it's refreshing, it's exciting. It's like I want that. Like I'm in. It feels warm. It feels healing, and that's
Mm.
not been my experience in the churches that I have shown up in over the many years. So I
Mm.
just want to recognize that that's very real too, and it is hard to hear that that is still going on because oh my gosh, we are all beautiful, um,
Happily.
imperfect
Me.
beings, people, and we are just so hard on ourselves and so hard on each other. And all that any of us want as a core human need is to be loved, to feel like we belong, to feel safe, to feel heard.
Mhm.
And we can do that for each other. So I think that's the other thing that I'm hearing in what you're sharing, and certainly what's in my heart is like, if we are experiencing that exclusion in some of our circles,
Mhm.
then for me, that's like more motivation for me to say, oh, okay, well, where am I creating exclusion in my life? Where am
Mm.
I maybe not really lifting up or shining light on the people and the situations in my life? And then it strengthens my commitment to work harder, to do more of my work so that I can show up in love in those spaces. For me,
Mhm.
that's a responsibility thing, and I think it's so important as a change maker, and I think a lot of who's listening right now probably, identify with being a change maker, and that for me is the work, like being able to see what's happening out there in the world, but then, like you said, coming inward and asking those questions to be like, "Oh, wait, what if this relates to me and how I'm showing up and how am I contributing to that in my own life?" And that's where our power lies. So that's what excites me about this conversation about love, because love is possible. It's within all of us. It's who we are.
I love that. Yes, 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 yes. And that brings us full circle back to what you said, and I echoed about being a vessel.
Mm,
Because for me, it's like, yeah, so I am committed to showing up every day and being a vessel through which love flows. So I totally agree with what you're saying. I feel emboldened. I feel like it's beyond empowered. I feel fueled as I look out and as I have these conversations with people who share these things. It makes me want to be even more on a mission to pour love into the world
Mm.
because, yeah, because for every one person who's standing at a church door, I can't even imagine. Like, it just actually, it makes me mad, right? It just does. But for every one person like that who's standing there and as people are coming in, you're acting like an idiot and you're making them feel self-conscious or, ooh, I don't belong here or anything like that. For every one person like that, if the rest of us really poured out love, that wouldn't even be a thing. I really believe that. So it's like when there's love in us, like you said, a responsibility. I feel that. It's almost like, hey, you're obligated to give that. Don't hold on to that. How selfish, right? To have a bunch of love on the inside of you and just hold that in a world, in a society where so many people need it. And the thing about love is it never runs out. In fact, the more you pour it out, the more of an info you just get more to pour out. So you're never without love when you give love.
Mm. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And we can give love to the idiots on the stair as well,
Yeah,
because those folks
exactly.
are hurting, right? Like, and I think that's the thing, it's very vulnerable in this world right now, anyways,
I'm holding this
to
up just to remind people like I am happily imperfect. So yeah, I know I need it because that's how I felt in the moment. Do I want to call people idiots? No, but did I mean it? Yeah, I did. And so yeah, okay, sorry.
yeah, no judgment here. It's just, yeah, and again, like, just another beautiful reminder when we encounter that aggression or standoffishness that, there's a deep call that's really like a call for help, a call for love. And people can accept it or not. That's not our job, but to give it is our job. And we have layers sometimes to unpack to be able to access that for ourselves, to feel safe enough to give it. And I do think what you said is true in my experience, is that the more I have been able to challenge myself to give love, the more I have received, which makes it
Mhm.
easier for me to give in the long run. So
Mhm.
I love that it's the 20th anniversary of Love Actually. It's one of my favorite movies as well, and definitely on the list for this holiday season to rewatch that.
Absolutely.
Yay.
You know
Yeah.
what I just thought about? I remember somebody saying, so I just throw this out here because I often remind myself of this because it's so profound and it speaks to that none of us are perfect. With respect to churches, if there was such a thing as a perfect church, the minute that you meaning all of us, any of us, walk through the doors, at that very moment, it becomes imperfect. Why? Because we are all imperfect. So that also, I think, is something that's been on my heart because then I leapt over like from church and how we tend to do that, like right, like oh, I got somebody treating me badly in church, therefore I'm standoffish when it comes to church and when it comes to God. And we do the same thing when it comes to people who are of different cultures and colors, right? So why do we do that? It's like if somebody encountered a brown skinned person at some point in their lives who treated them who acted like a jerk, right? Who said hurtful things, that was that one person. That doesn't mean that I, as a brown person, am a jerk and am all of these things that other person was, right? But we tend to do that. So we extrapolate, oh, I went to one church, or I went to, oh, when I was 10, I visited 10 churches and the people were mean to me, and therefore I don't know about the church, or I encountered 5 Black people or brown people who did whatever, and therefore in my mind, yeah, those Black people, that's, it doesn't even make sense,
Mm.
but it's what humans do.
Yes, and it's more layered and nuanced than just the individual, especially when, well, with church as well, but I'm not going to speak to that because that's not my area of expertise. But when it comes to differences of culture, there are movies and laws and lots of social discourse that um, have told us that people of color are not good people, right? That's systemic racism. And so there is something called confirmation bias. So whether we're aware of that programming in our bodies or not, it's there. And
Okay.
then we confirm it with these, like, oh, that one person, see, yep, all that stuff is right that I feel in my body anyways, even if I'm not aware of it. And so
Mm.
that's the journey of systemic racism and how we unpack that as individuals, heck yeah, we need to take responsibility and start to become aware of when we are making those gross overgeneralizations, and just making wrong conclusions, period. It's not a generalization, it's just a wrong
Yeah.
conclusion. Um, and also know that it's been conditioned into society. That's colonization. Um, that's the sea that we are swimming in, and we're in the journey right now of becoming aware of that sea, so we can get ourselves the heck out of it and
I
create a
hear
new one.
you. I hear you, man. I intellectually fully understand all of that. I am right now, side note, feeling like I just watched a interview with Nikki Giovanni and James Baldwin that my nephew sent me. And I'm feeling like her right now in what I'm about to say. I understand absolutely everything that you just said. At the same time, it makes my blood boil a little bit, these conversations, when we, and I'm using the we word because I'm not directing this at you, people have these conversations, and then it goes in a direction of systemic racism, confirmation bias, how the brain works, right? Stereotypes in your unconscious mind is, I get all of that. And all of that is valid. Yes, there is systemic racism. There absolutely is, right? Yes, there are structural and systematic and systemic things in place that contribute to that. Absolutely. At the same time, none of that excuses, not saying that you were saying, right, that about talking about excusing it, but none of that excuses what we do as people. And I believe that human beings are very smart creatures. I really do. And I think that we're not always mindful of ourselves, right? We're not always thoughtful. We're not always aware of ourselves. But if we just sat and thought just for a moment about the things that we do. So, in my example of, if 5 people of a certain color did something to you at some point that you didn't like, and now fast forward, you're entrenched in a stereotyped view of all people in that category. Come on. If you just sat and thought about that, and that's what I meant by
Mm,
it doesn't make sense.
mm,
Like, we don't have
yeah.
to be entrenched like you and I are, Ame-Lia, having researched how the mind. people don't have to know anything about that. Oh, there's something called confirmation bias, or you don't have to know any of that. You just need to be a human being that has a brain that works. So let's assume that you're not technically and medically brain dead. This is not rocket science. It's not.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And I think we need to have those conversations. So like this came up on one of our coaching calls recently. And it was a brilliant conversation where somebody was being coached and they said, you know, all men have hurt me. Like all men suck. All men have hurt me. And the coach was like challenging this person to be like, okay, like all men, like 3 point whatever billion people, men have hurt you. And they're like, no, like, okay, well, how many? Well, five. Oh, five. Okay, so 5 out of 3 point some billion men have hurt you, right? So that it does require us to be more challenging of people's language.
yes.
And I think that is a responsibility that we can all kind of take on, because I think we've gotten into a bit of a lazy habit of just letting things fly, like common phrases that are often said, just having those be repeated and be like, yeah, okay, even though they don't make any sense in the world. So that's why I love bringing people together and having conversation and dialogue and really being able to unpack this stuff to say, and doing it not from a place of judgment. I mean, maybe that's a privileged statement. Maybe I can sit in that place and not judge per se, even though I do definitely have judgments because I'm a human.
We all judge because
that
you know
mug, please. The mug, yeah, exactly.
Let's not kid ourselves.
But to be like have the courage, and really, courage. Do we need anymore? It's just our responsibility as humans to get conscious, first of all, to what is being said, and then to call it out, to say, well, wait a second, is that true? Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. You know what it makes me think about is it makes me think about kindness, really, right? Which makes me think about, I know that you do kindness circles, right? And so, and again, and this is just a foundational belief that I have. I really do believe that every human being, again, unless you are medically diagnosed, which some people are, right? There are people who don't have the ability to feel, right? There are people who are actually sociopaths and these other things. So unless there's something medically wrong with you, which is not the majority of us, that's a small, probably percentage of all humans on the planet, I think we all have the ability and the capacity and the wiring, and you know, it's within our grasp and within our reach to be kind. If we want to be,
and choose it. Yeah.
If we choose to be, it's available to all of us. And yes, there are 50 million or more probably reasons why people aren't kind. And of course, Ame-Lia, you and I could go deep on that conversation, right? Because of course people have trauma, and hurt people, and all of those things, right? And all the layers and layers and layers and layers and layers of all of this stuff. Even with all that though, it's possible for us to be kind.
I just got the shivers. I love it. It's true. It's so true. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I have that tendency to want to unpack and be like, yes, and there's all these things, and make it be easy. Make it be easy. Be kind.
Yeah, because sometimes when we go in those directions and have those conversations about all the reasons why, it can sort of excuse and justify, right? And it can cause this mindset that people slip into that shifts off of just freaking be kind and onto, oh, let me focus on all the reasons why, you know, like justify. yeah, and this is just, and this is how people are, and I'm just working through my stuff. Yes, we're all working through stuff, and it is totally within our grasp every day to be kind to other human beings, no matter what all the gunk is, no matter what all the layers are. So let's not excuse ourselves from being kind.
I love it. Okay. So on that note, as we start to wrap up here, and as we start stepping out into the rest of our days, what comes up for you in terms of being kind in this day? Like, are there things that you're thinking about where you're like, I'm gonna apply what we're talking about?
Yes.
Okay.
I have meetings, I have interactions. So there will be times throughout the rest of my day where I'm interacting with people. So absolutely, there are now two things. So thank you for this conversation. I came into this conversation with one main thing really brewing, and that was love. So now I'm leaving our conversation with love and kindness, and me being a vessel for that as my intention. No matter what happens in those interactions with the people that I'll be interacting with later, I will absolutely be standing in a place of intentional love and intentional kindness, no matter what. So that's what I'm going to do today. What about you?
I love that. I was thinking about this last night actually, as I was at a public hearing, and like only a couple people like really just thanked the mayor and council for their time and for being there, and even though some of them had very strong points to say, some of them did still manage to say that, to just infuse the conversation with that nugget of kindness, because you can have both and, right? You can say, I'm so grateful to you for being here, and this is my opinion on this matter. So that's what I'm taking with me into the rest of my conversations that I'm having today, is like, what's the nugget of kindness that I can genuinely, authentically drop toward the people that I'm interacting with? And I love doing that. Like,
Did you say negative? Are you saying negative kindness? Just so I'm clear. It sounds like you said negative. Are you saying negative kindness?
No, I don't know what I said. It's maybe the microphone mumbling.
It sounded like you were saying negative. What's the negative kindness? And I'm like, oh, what? That sounds oxymoronic. What is?
Yeah, I don't know what that is. I don't know, because I didn't say it.
Negative okay. I was like, what? My brain froze.
Okay. Oh, all good. So I'm just going to use every opportunity to infuse some love, shine some light on the people that I get to be with today, because every person is a soul, and I really am honored every time I get to interact, knowing that even if it's a tricky conversation, there's a gift there for me. So that's me for today.
Love it. All right, you guys, we're going to wrap on this note. And so hope to all of you that you have a day, no matter what's going on, where perhaps you've been inspired to just spread a little bit of kindness. And sometimes maybe that's just being quiet, because sometimes we're like in a ticked off mood or whatever, and that's real too. And so sometimes it's just don't say anything. And that's being kind. Silence can be kindness. So, and let us know. We always want to know, as you guys are watching this on the replay, drop comments. What do you think about love and kindness and what we've said today about how easy it is? Do you agree? Maybe you have other thoughts. Let us know. All right. So we will see you guys next week. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of the week, and early part of next week. We'll be right back here next Wednesday.
Ciao.